Wait a minute. Michaels down. Michaels hit it Burnley. Cross body blocked. The referee, Earl Hebner. Oh! The referee didn't see a dang thing.
And Shawn Michaels thrown back into the ring.
Shawn Michaels struck in the back of the head by the camera.
And Sid with an opportunity here to finish it.
If Sid hits it, it's over. We got a new champion.
You're gonna do WrestleMania. That's killer. WBCW presents. That's cool. Are you talking to me? Pro Wrestling Radio. Come, get some. Can you feel it? Oh, the damn bull. Call in with a question or comment. 6-1. Just bring it. What is he doing? At 1-888-922-2149. Oh, it's true. Don't make me hurt you! Be awesome! Now be the man! You got a dance hard time! I hate your ever... And now your host of the show.
That's how I roll!
Eric.
Excuse me! And that's the bottom line!
Good afternoon and welcome to a very special edition of Pro Wrestling Radio. My name is Eric Arjula, and we will be going an extended 90 minutes today until 1:30. But for the first hour, we will be joined by a man who is one of the most successful wrestlers ever in the history of this industry, and one of my personal favorites. He is a former WWE and former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, and it is a true honor to be joined today by the man known as Sid Vicious. Sid, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Good. The last time the general public saw you was in WCW and that ill-fated accident. What have you been doing since that time?
Well, just extensive rehab for the first 3 years were real extensive rehabbing. Hours and hours a day of getting that thing, back working, and then the last couple of years I've been doing, I think I did my first show not this summer before that, up in Montreal. Then it felt okay, but not quite 100%. So I took another year off, and then I started doing some shows. Took in a couple other independent shows, and then started taking some last summer, and ever since then, everything's been going really good.
That's great. And for a lot of the fans have seen it, and it's been played on YouTube over and over again. Is it something that you've replayed in your head over and over again?
Honestly, I don't, man. I don't think about it. I have never seen the footage of it. And it's not that it's something it's not anything I'm trying to hide from.
Right.
It's just, I'm not one to sit back and watch it. What I did on television or whatever anyway.
Okay.
Or, I don't do that, but then I definitely didn't want to, visualize the break.
Sure. Now, when it happened, I mean, just like any other wrestler, especially for somebody like yourself that wrestled such a grueling schedule, I'm sure you've suffered injuries in your career. Now, after it happened, did you have any idea how serious it was going to be?
Not really. We was in Indianapolis when it happened, and I could tell by the doctor's face that this wasn't just another, break of the leg. And because one of the agents there, Terry Taylor, was like, hey, he'll be up and going in no time, and the doctor never did really respond. And then when I came home, to do my referral work with my rehab and stuff here, the doctor really never did say that much to me either. And then finally, when I was going through physical therapy, the doctor there, I talked to him about it, and he just said, well, Sid, they just, with injury like this, you just don't have much chance, to either probably walk or run again. And that was probably my first that was probably 3 months after the surgery. People don't realize, 1 month after the surgery, on a walker, I was back in the gym.
Wow.
And to understand, I could only put, 5 pounds of pressure at any one time on that leg. So I was doing everything on one leg. And I still have guys that see me in the gym today say, man, I remember, 4 years ago, you're standing in the gym doing power cleans on one leg. I just didn't give up. I kept working with it. I knew circulation was a key, to getting this thing to come back around. Maybe the easiest way to explain this is that, when a horse has when the horse breaks their leg, especially that low around the ankle, why they usually put them to sleep is because there's no muscle tissue there to bring blood to recirculate. So I had to really, really, and I'm still doing it, just to, stay, it seems like sometimes if I take like a week or two off from my running or my extensive work or something like that, it almost does seem like I have a little bit of a setback. So I'm still having to, constantly keep on top of it, stay on top of my, where I'm at today physically.
Yeah. As somebody like yourself that has, done just about everything and anything in the wrestling business, I mean, you've drawn so much money and, main evented against just about anybody who was anybody over the last 15, 20 years. What's your motivation to even work this hard to come back to the ring?
Well, one is, truly, and I know this is an old cliche, but one is just for my love for the business, one. I think really the main thing that has driven me and pushed me to get back to this is that what you just said. I've had a really cool career, and that's just not the way I saw myself going out.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, I was so just the first, even being on a walker and crutches for so long. I was in the gym every morning, twice a day. I wasn't doing a whole lot, but I was in there. I was doing what I could do, a lot of machine stuff, and the stationary bike where I could put that cast on the pedal. But really was to get back and just finish my career quickly. But believe it or not, as of last year, when I knew I was 100% again, and I was able to, really come back. I didn't really lose the drive to come back, but I had, got in touch with last April, March, with the WWE, told them I was, 100% and ready to come back, and they sounded real interested, and they've been dragging their feet about that ever since. And now I'm not really. That's not, I did a show last night and the week before I've been doing a lot of independence, and it's really not now, the main goal. I've exceeded my main goal, and that's to be physically 100% again. Yeah. And I really think back in my head, that probably was what was, driving me. It wasn't really so much worried about the wrestling thing, but yeah, I still do.
Yeah. Now, last year, I remember there were rumors going around last year at the 2006 WrestleMania. There was some talk that you were going to be a part of that. Was there any truth to that?
You know what? I heard it too. But then, I hear these things, and just for instance, give you an example. I called. I was told to call Johnny Ace. I called him last week, and he had answered his phone and said, "Hey man," said, "I'm glad you called." He said, "I'm just about to go into a meeting. I'm being in for a couple hours. I'll call you back." Yeah. Well, I never heard from him. And then what happened is, evidently, he had lost my number. That he really doesn't have my number, and he got it from a friend of mine, and he was supposed to have called me back this week. And again, I still haven't heard from him. So, I hear, through people I know there in the territory that, my name's been brought up a lot, and they'd really like to have me in there. But then again, it seems like maybe they don't, and so that's sort of been a little bit of a disappointment.
Right. Do you keep up with the current product and watch it just to get a feel of what's going on in case you do start in there, say next week, a month from now?
I'm one of those people that, I don't watch wrestling. One, I was really bitter about it for a long time, so I didn't watch it then. And then, this sometimes gets you in trouble. But being honest, I've just not have been impressed with anything I've seen over the last 5 years when I have flicked through. And honestly, in the last 5 or 6 years, I couldn't have seen more than 15 minutes of their show. And when I do see something, it's so silly. And it's not usually, it's things that I consider silly. It seems like the thing I catch the most on there or the girls fighting.
Right.
And, to me, I know they got a lot of those girls in there and they have to do something with them. But, when Al Ass was wrestling, they had, like, for instance, WCW had the Nitro girls, which I thought that was a pretty cool concept. And not really a lot of girl wrestlers, and WWE had some really good girls that were wrestlers, and now they just seem like they have too many.
Yeah.
And two, I've been there and I've been in that territory, and I know when I can, that TV is so good and they do everything so perfect on that TV. But there are certain things that pop out to me that I can see that there, I see some struggles there.
Yeah.
But which, they're going to be struggles everywhere. But other than that, I don't know. One of the things I did like, last things I saw on there was, this is little old school stuff. Was there's something to do with Vince. He was beating up. He had some guy. He wanted to come down, and he was beating the guy up. Actually, of all the things I've seen of late, that was one of the things that I thought was pretty good. And I did see a thing on there a few months or 6 months ago with Taker on there, and he was doing a good job. But other than that, most other things I've seen on there just, to me was a little silly.
Yeah. Could you imagine yourself wrestling Vince when you come back?
Me wrestling Vince?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind it. I think it'd be, I'm going to say this the wrong way, I think it'd be a waste of time.
Yeah.
The things I have seen with Vince over the last few years, and there's two ways that people look at it like this, and I'll give you an example like Jerry Lawler, but he didn't keep himself in a manager's position. And in the business, and Vince is good about really milking things out and making things last longer or work longer than most other people are. But when you're in a manager's position, you don't ever have any credibility.
Yeah.
I don't care even being the owner of the territory. Once you got Rikishi, you get your face in Rikishi's ass a few times, and they beat him up. It seems like every time, and this is unselfish for him to do things like this to, and this is his philosophy a little bit. But once a manager starts getting beat up, and then now, in this business, not just managers, but it's always been once you lost your hair, the deal was over.
Right.
And it just seemed like, I don't know. And then I heard last night that I guess evidently he got blown up in a car, and maybe that's his way of getting out of this thing.
Yeah.
But I just don't think, for me, not and the thing I've seen him do with this guy now, he's been working an angle with a younger guy. Things like that would be okay with some people, but with me, it really would truly be a waste of time because Vince isn't going to make the house shows, and me and him are nobody. Of course, initially they would react to me as a I don't know if this is the right term anymore, as a baby face, and that's something I'm not really interested in doing either.
Yeah.
Not that I wouldn't do it, but I really would like to do something else.
Gotcha. Hey, listen, I'm going to ask if you can hang on. We'll take a quick time out and bring you right back.
All right.
Excellent. We are talking to, again, one of the most successful wrestlers ever in the history of this business, and one of my personal favorites, former World Heavyweight Champion, just about anywhere he went, Sid Vicious. And at about 12:30, we will open up the phone lines where you yourself can talk to the big man and ask him anything you want. You're listening to Pro Wrestling Radio in a couple of different places. One, live on the internet on WBCB1490.com, archived on my website at ProWrestlingRadio.com, on the air on WBCB 1490 AM.
Now, Sid Justice, there must be some reason for your actions. You turned your back on your friend, Hulk Hogan.
Shut up! First, it's easy. I don't turn my back on my friends because I don't need any friends. And furthermore, with friends like Hulk Hogan, I need no enemies. Now, I cannot still believe the words that Jack Tunney spit out his mouth and named Hulk Hogan the #1 contender to face Ric Flair for the championship at WrestleMania. Because it's simple. All you have to do is open your eyes and you will see the man that's standing here is the #1 contender. Now, Jack Tunney, you've already showed favoritism. Always showed favoritism toward him. He's a big movie star. Maybe I'm not. I said it once, and I'll say it again. Hulk Hogan, you couldn't beat Ric Flair on your best day. And you couldn't beat me on my worst, because I am the man that rules the world.
And now back to more Pro Wrestling Radio and your host of the show, Eric Gargiulo.
All right, welcome back to Pro Wrestling Radio, and you heard right there, he is our guest for the entire hour. He is Sid Vicious. And Sid, let me ask you, because a lot of people have called into the radio show about this, and you and I have talked about this in a previous interview. And keeping in mind that I'm on radio, so if you can kind of censor your answer, because I know you might get a little fired up asking this. Sure. But what are your thoughts when you first heard about the comments that Ric Flair made about you on the Horsemen DVD?
Well, I told you before, and maybe this word, the one thing I told you, I said I didn't hear it. I just heard it from you and other people. For the guy who, through the moment I met him to the last time I saw him, was always real respectful to me, was a really nice person and things like that. Only thing I can say would be this, and I explained it to you.
Yeah.
When I hear somebody say something like that, and he knows, and I know it's not even close to being true. It sounds like maybe he's a little jealous, or not maybe jealous, or maybe his feelings are a little hurt that I wasn't willing to do the Horsemen DVD or CD or whatever you want to call it. And I told you, and I'll tell everybody now, and I told the company at the time when they called and asked me to do it, that I had plans, and still do, if things were to work out, to come back up there and have a nice run.
Yeah.
Of course, I'll give you, like last night, I was doing this little spot show, and I had all these little bitty things, thrown into the match through the night, and just like one little thing at a time, like, I wanted one guy to run in to feed a heel, and then, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And at first they just said, man, that didn't sound like a whole lot too much to it. But then after we got it all put together, in this little place we was at, and they've been there in existence now for over 10 years, it was one of the most exciting matches that place has seen in 10 years. And that's what I'm trying to get to here, is that even though that DVD, that Horseman thing, doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but if no one knows what what some of the ideas I have, and then we don't know what the ideas that the company might have, and to expose me before I come back, and something, and I'm not downplaying anything, but something so, insignificant as a Horseman DVD. We know why they're coming up with those, the AWA DVDs and all these others. It's just they're just trying to find something to make some money on.
Yeah.
if they really thought the Horseman thing was any good, they would be doing it on TV.
Good point.
And like I said, and I told the company, or the guy, whoever was in charge of that, that, hey, look, I'm trying to talk to these people about coming back, and I just don't want to do anything that might, not overshadow, but water down something maybe big I could do.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
And what it does, too, and just, and I've been lucky, and I'm sure if I get a chance to come back, it will be, and I've always been in good position. So if you're going to be in a good position, and too, I don't have to say this, but just me coming back to the business over this injury, this is an injury no one else would have probably ever come back from, that itself is going to be a big statement.
Yeah.
Just that alone. But so, I don't want to overshadow anything that, I've worked 7 years to get back to by doing something so small. It's like a DVD that they're only going to sell a couple hundred copies of.
Right. No, it makes a lot of sense. And listening to that promo that you cut after you turned on Hogan back in the 90s, I remember the first time I saw you in magazines, and you always had the physical tools about you. But who was it that helped bring out the character in you and helped you develop your promos?
Well, one of the first people that because when I first started, in the business, I was Lord Humongous. I had a manager. I never said a word. Mm-hmm. And then had a little run there. Sid Vicious in the Memphis territory. Didn't really, it was all live TV. Never said more than maybe 4 seconds. And then with the Skyscrapers, we had Teddy, who did all the talking. I just wasn't really a comfortable talker. And then the first person that really forced me into saying, hey, you got to start doing this, was Arn Anderson. And then people like him and Dutch Martel, they was watching me, hear me do interviews, and said, okay, hey, just keep it simple, something that, that the people can hear and believe. And I started off like that. And then, two, one of the biggest catalysts in this that helped me, and two, I told you before, I was really surrounded my whole life in this business with really, smart people.
Yeah.
And, but probably the person that really got me down and really helped me out with everything was Ole Anderson. He was the first. And then, of course, working for Vince and them, everything was a little more in detailed. And then that's when I really learned about detail. And so what I used to do was I would read some books, and if I highlight, sometimes one word or a phrase or a paragraph would jump out at me and give me a lot of things to think about, talking about. And so I'd always keep a book with some things highlighted, to be able to feed off of and come up with some pretty cool things to say.
That's great. Speaking, I brought up Flair's name, but somebody that actually said something very complimentary about you. Last week on the show, I had Paul Orndorff on, Mr. Wonderful. And he praised you. He said he liked you a lot and really hit on your psychology and just, said you really understood the whole psychology aspect of the business.
Well, I do, man, and I'm not bragging. I'll give you another example. I think I told you before. It was 3 years ago. I did my very first show as a wrestler in Montreal up there with it was a hardcore group like ECW out of Montreal. And it was our 5th year anniversary pay-per-view, and I came in and did it with Carl Willett. And we've been talking over the phone for a couple weeks, and I had him get me a few prop things like a giant hourglass, and I wanted an entourage of people like a midget and some other people. And what I was getting to is that, I was doing a little deal that night that, my interview was that, hey, I was sitting at home, really not caring about coming back to the business. And in my sleep one night, the gods of wrestling came to me and said, hey, man, you got to come back. And I told the gods, I said, man, I'm not really interested in coming back. And then they said, no, you've got to come back because you're the future of the business. So that's really intricate, and there was a lot of little pieces went in that, and we ended up going a solid hour that night.
Wow.
Now, when it was all done, and I got everything done, and I got all the interviews done in between, and we were sort of in a tag team deal, and it was the people around the company just went crazy over it. And Carl Willett, people know this guy. He's a great worker. He's got a really good mind too. Real quiet guy, doesn't say a lot. But we got back to his house that night, and it was pretty late. We was exhausted. Been really working a couple of days. I went up there a couple of days early to try to get things worked out. But when it was done and it all fell in place, he looked at me and he said, this sounds like a brag a little bit, but he says, "Hey, Sid," he says, "you're a genius." And it's not that maybe I'm a genius, but I do have a good grasp for what's going on in this business because, again, I've worked, directly, hand in hand with some of the, best minds in this business, from Ole to, Pat Patterson was another person who was really influential with me, learning some of the things about the business, why things happen and why they don't happen. And when you find out those things, there's a lot of them. I won't go into all of them now, but you stay away from some things, and there's things you don't stay away from, that you're looking forward to throwing into an angle or a match or an interview and things like that.
Gotcha. Well, again, we are speaking to the legendary Sid Vicious. And Sid, I'm going to take my final break, and when we come back, we'll hear from the fans.
Okay.
All right, excellent. We are speaking to the legendary Sid Vicious, and when we come back from the break, we will take your calls. The phones are already lit up. We'll start out when we come back from the break from Chicago, and we'll just move on through the hour. Now, when you come on to speak to Sid, just to keep things moving and to make sure we get everybody on, as long as possible, please come on the air and say hello and state your question or questions, and then we're going to cut you off, and you can listen on the other side, and that way we'll keep things moving along, and we'll try and get in as many calls as possible for the legendary Sid Vicious. My name is Eric Gargiulo. This is Pro Wrestling Radio. We're on the air until 1:30 today. At 1 o'clock, we'll take a break for the news, and then in the 1 o'clock hour, we will talk to John House live down at PWU's Crazy 8 Tailgate Party and take your calls on all the news and topics of the week. You're listening to the radio show in a couple of different places. One, live on the radio on WBCB's website, WBCB1490.com, on my website, archived on ProWrestlingRadio.com, and on WBCB 1490 AM.
Sting is up. Dizzy hitter fighting down the aisle toward the dressing room area. Wait a minute. No. Oh, Sid brought him back into the ring. Sid got him right back to the ring. Oh, he got him up. Got him. He got 1, 2. He got it. Oh, he got it. What is it? He got the boat. Sid got the boat. What happened? Sid won the title. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the winner and new world heavyweight champion, Sid Vicious. Wait a minute. We got a new champion again. Sting went for the slam. We got a new champion. I cannot believe the fireworks are going off. There's Sting right there.
And now back to more Pro Wrestling Radio and your host of the show, Eric Gargiulo.
All right, thank you very much. And again, we are joined by the legendary Sid Vicious, and we are now taking your calls. The numbers to call in and talk to Sid, 1-888-922-2149. That's toll free at 1-888-922-2149, or locally at 215-949-3232. Let's start out in Chicago. Dan's on the air. Dan, you are talking to Sid Vicious.
How you doing, Sid? It's a pleasure to talk to you. I'm a big fan of yours for a long, long time. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
My question is, a long time ago, I'm going to the Horsemen DVD. There was an incident with you and Arn Anderson involving a stabbing, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on the story, and I'll hang up and listen.
All right, thanks a lot for your call, Dan.
Listen, because of this long distance thing, I couldn't hear what he was saying. Could you repeat the question to me?
Absolutely, absolutely. He was asking, he just finished watching the Horsemen DVD, and he just wanted to ask you to elaborate about the stabbing incident with you and Arn Anderson, because he said Arn Anderson talked about it on the DVD.
Well, I don't know what Arn said about it. Me and Arn's talked about it. We put it, we both said it's behind us. I'm sure during that DVD to make it, more sellable, they'll put anything in there, no matter how stupid it seems. The deal with that is this, and I've said it in the simplest way I can put it. Arn and I always had great respect for each other, still do. It was an incident that just got stupid and out of hand, and it's something I wish it had never happened.
He pretty much said the same thing. He didn't say anything disparaging. That's pretty much along the same lines of what he said about it.
And that has to be a little bit of a testimony there to the truth of it, the whole thing, because we both you don't never want to be in a position like that, and when things like that happen, it just, you regret it.
Yeah. Before we get back to the phones, I don't know if you heard, but I played the clip from Halloween Havoc where you won the title and they switched it back and the whole Barry Windham thing. And the reason I played that is because when you and I talked a couple of weeks ago, you said that was one of your favorite angles that you were involved in.
Well, it was one. Yeah, it was. It was one of probably to me, the one single night of that I did something that, man, it was so much fun. And the reason was, I told you then, was because I didn't even know that. I didn't know anything. I didn't know Barry Windham was in the building. I don't think anyone did. And if they did, maybe I was the only one that didn't. I was assumed that what happened, if everybody remembers what happened, was, me and Sting finally got to the floor. I ran Sting through the back door. I was told he was supposed to have come back out like holding his head like somebody had whacked him. Mm-hmm. And when he got back in the ring, I just, rolled him up 1, 2, 3. When he got in there, of course, it wasn't him, it was Barry. And I didn't notice it until I got him down. And then, still had been told anything. So I just, I had to use, some quick thinking there. And I thought, well, maybe what they'll do, because at the time they were only doing a pay-per-view every 3 months. I said, well, they'll probably come back to TV and say, hey, that Sid didn't really win this belt, and that is a way of heat. They've done that, I'm sure, somewhere before, where someone cheated and got the belt one way or another, and for a heel, that's good, especially you got someone like Sting, who's a really established babyface, and then, it would make sense to me that he would come back and get what was rightfully his.
Yeah.
But then I got the belt, and I turned my back, and all of a sudden I heard the people go crazy, and by the time I turned back around, the ref taking the belt out of my hand and saying, hey, catch Stinger splash in the corner, 1, 2, 3. To me, this is something that was one of the things I learned that night, and I've tried to do, other times in my career and other matches, is I've always been told, and that night really is a true testament to it, if you fool the boys, you fool the people. And that's what, to me, I'm not trying to fool the people, but because we know this business will work.
Yeah.
But if I can make my character, and I have people believing that I really have true dislike for the person I'm in the ring with, and I'm really physically trying to really damage this person, then I am fooling the people.
Definitely.
And I'll give you an example. One time I was working with Bobby Eaton the summer before last in Nashville, and with certain people, I don't like to, especially in a spot show or independent show, something like that, I'm not going to, ask Bobby to take 15 power bombs and clotheslines and choke slams and stuff like that, because he never didn't say he didn't want to, but I'm not going to do that to someone, like him, that doesn't really, and he's such a great worker too. We don't have to do things like that to have a good match. So what I did there was I said, look, I'm just going to really physically work you over and to a point to where the referee comes over and pulls me off several times, and then finally, and what I did too in the beginning of the deal to make it a little credibility, I got on the mic and said, "Look, Bobby, we were friends, and in the back I asked you, and my whole deal in this business and everywhere I've gone in all these independent deals is that I'm only here for one reason, and that's just really destroy anybody who gets in the ring with me, because I really hate everyone for what's happened to me." And that's easy something to feed off of.
Yeah.
So I said, "Bobby, you told me you wasn't going to do, you weren't going to come to the ring tonight." And he said, "Well, hey, I understand now that you're serious." And when he did, he turned around, I whacked him, we got the heat. And I'm not saying I worked him over, but I laid some things in pretty good. And then had a deal where just a simple thing. Finally, the ref called the match, DQ'd me because of being overzealous or whatever, being too aggressive and not coming off the break. And then I backed away from the corner and had him wave me, "Come on, I'm not through." When we got back that night to the dressing room, a lot of the guys, came up to him, didn't so much to me, but other people said, "Hey man, was Sid really mad?" So that's my deal, man. If I can go out there and I can fool people, no matter what the situation is, I know that the people are probably happy.
That's awesome. That's a great example. All right, we're going to go back to the phones. And Sid, if you can't hear what anybody's asking, I'll be more than happy to repeat it for you.
Okay. All
right, great. Let's go to Fairless Hills, Pennsylvania. Vince, you're on the air.
Thank you for taking my phone call, Eric.
You're welcome.
Sid, hello, sir. I want you to know you're the most scariest person to look at. Somebody like myself out of shape, seeing you on TV, I would shiver myself.
Sid, he said that during your career, you were one of the most scariest people to look at, and he said someone like him, out of shape, would look at you and just quiver.
Well, that's something too. I was born with a natural scour on my face. Some people are really handsome and they use that to their benefit. Me, I had this natural scour and this aggressive look, and so I used that, and that was something else, and that's what I put the word in there, credibility. So everything I tried to do most of the time is that I really paid attention to all the small and big details. So, I used my facial expressions, I used my intensity with my size and my intimidating look and stuff like that. And that is something people that, a lot of times I have fans come up to me, they're really scared to come up to me because they really believe in real life I'm like that.
Yeah. Hey, Vince, do you have a question you want to ask before I cut you off?
When he goes to the independent leagues, how many people usually show up when they know he's on the thing? And I'll have his dream match, him versus Brock Lesnar. And you have a great day.
There you go. Take care of yourself. He was just talking about two things. One, he said a dream match for him as a fan would be to see you wrestle Brock Lesnar. And he said his second question was just what it's like to work the independents and have all those fans, that didn't get a chance to get so, up close and personal with you, get up close and personal.
Well, believe it or not, I had a pretty good rapport with my fans. Especially the people who would hang out in the back and would wait till out in the snow or the rain or the heat or whatever to get an autograph, and I sit there and always sign every one of them at the end. I don't think there's really a line of a disconnect there with the small territories or the big territories. I think we still have that, we're still available to reach out and be able to touch or talk to the fans. It's just some people refuse or choose not to.
Right. And Brock Lesnar, he's not wrestling anymore, but were you ever able to watch him at all?
Yeah, I watched him a little bit. I thought he was a heck of an impressive guy. I've noticed he was using a few of the things I did, like jump from the floor to the ring. Of course, I don't know if I was the first one to do that, but I was one of the first big guys to do that.
Yeah.
I never heard anything bad about the guy, other than after he quit, and that these probably all just rumors. Probably no truth to any of them. But that's something too, is that through, everyone's life in a wrestling career, when someone resembles you or has a little bit of look like you have, that's almost an automatic. People want to see that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'd love to work with the guy because I don't know him, but I'd always enjoy to work with anyone that, and I've had that question asked to me a lot. So that question has been asked to me a lot. That would probably be something that people would be interested in. So I would sure be interested in it.
Definitely. Before I get back to the phones, you had such a successful career, and you did so many different things during your career. Is there one time that you could pick out, whether it was a gimmick that you had or a feud that you were in, or just a time that you thought that to yourself that this was the most fun time that you had during your entire career?
Well, yeah, there was. And I'll tell you, it probably won't make much sense to you. It was actually when I very first started down in Continental Championship Wrestling. Those were back in the days where, and pretty much I'm still like that today. I never had to worry about who I was working with that night. This was before I knew there was anything like jealousy in the business. It was just, every night was just that. It was so much fun. Now, I had, now that's one type of fun. This other type of fun that I really enjoyed was working on the big scale and the big platform of WWF. They just, the magnitude of people that were at the events, things like that. Now, that to me also was just as much as fun, even though the thing about me too, I've never been had my hand or my mind into the politics side of the business.
Yeah.
Still, up to the last day I worked in WCW or WWE or WWF, I never looked at the booking sheet. I didn't know who I was working with till I got there. I didn't care. I mean, I did care, but I didn't let those, like some people who'll get on the thing and find out who they're working with at TV and call the office and drive them crazy about what's going on, this and that.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy that type of stuff. So, and that's why the small territory in the beginning was probably still, to look back, was the most fun I ever had, because all it was fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you weren't making any money, so it wasn't the money, but and it was just, that to me was probably the most fun I had.
No, it actually makes a whole lot of sense, actually. Well, we are scanning the United States today. We're going to go to Michigan for our next call. Scott in Michigan, you are on the air with Sid Vicious.
Hey, with Sid Vicious. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I've always admired you. Growing up, you did intimidate me. One thing I got to ask you is that when you went to ECW, this is a real quick question here, is, like, why did you decide to go to ECW after, like, all you accomplished, in WCW and the WWE holding both their titles? Why did you decide to go down to ECW?
Did you hear his question?
I swear I cannot hear nothing.
Oh, okay. He was saying that when you went to ECW, he was surprised, and he was wondering, with everything that you had accomplished and wrestling on such a big scale as WWF and WCW, why you went to ECW when you did.
Well, I was in between. I wasn't working for either one of the companies when I was offered that position there, and to me, it was as well run as either of the two organizations, pretty much. There wasn't really a lot of difference between the three of them, other than it was just a smaller scale. The other side to ECW was it's sort of like television gotten today. You were allowed to do more. You could get away with more. And I've said before too. Paul did, in my opinion, he did a perfect. He used me perfectly. I came in and was myself all the time, and things like that. So I never looked at that like taking a step back, and I don't look like doing OCO last night, taking a step back. It's just another shot.
Yeah.
So I don't look at it like that. I looked at it as a good opportunity. It opened up other opportunities for me, and that's what usually happens. But that was a place I had a lot of fun as well.
Do you have another question, Scott, before I cut you off? Oops, Scott's gone. Scott, are you there? No, I guess he hung up. Oh, okay. I wanted to ask you, for a little while, in between stints, I think when you were rehabbing an injury, you were down in Memphis and you did commentary for a little while there. And did you like it?
I did. I was what that deal was to be, and if I'm not mistaken, the commentating was a little of a deal where it was to make the people think that's what I was, until I got whatever. But it was just a ploy to make the people think that's what I was going to be till I get and got back in the ring.
Oh, okay. Did you like it? Did you like the couple of weeks that you did a commentary?
I did a little bit. It was something new. I hadn't really got a real good feel for, because you can't talk when someone else is talking. And I think there was 3 of us out there. I can't remember who all it was now, but it was a little complicated. Not complicated, but it wasn't as if I had a chance to maybe do more of it. And see, that's just, man, I love talking, and I love doing interviews, but commentating, man, is, to me, is not something I look forward to doing.
Gotcha. What are your memories or any thoughts you have of Lance Russell, one of the greats?
Lance was, to me, like a Gordon Sully, just a true professional, a real gentleman, what we call gentleman's gentleman in this business. The pure good guy, and he was like that in real life too.
Gotcha. Yeah, the tape that I saw with you doing commentary and doing the angle with Mabel, you were doing commentary with Lance, and I forget if it was Corey or Dave. That was the other one.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go back to the phones, and the Rat Boy is on the air. Rat, you can state your question or questions, and I'll throw them to Sid. Rat.
Yo, Eric.
Hey.
What's up, Mr. Psycho Sid?
What's going on?
I got a question for him.
What's your question?
If he were do it all over again, would he?
All right, thanks for your question. Hey, that's a pretty good question, Sid. He wanted to know if you had it to do all over again, would you do it?
I'd do it just like it's happened.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't try to change anything. I wouldn't try to change my leg break. I wouldn't try to change the part where I lost part of my lung, or I broke my neck, or any of the injuries, or anything like that. Or no, if I had to do it all over again, I'd be happy if it happened just like it's happened.
Excellent. Now I don't know if you heard, but some real sad news yesterday, and Sherry Martel passed away.
I heard that yesterday. It was really sad because, and I'm not saying this in the wrong way, or if I am, I don't care. I don't have a lot of respect for many females in this business, and that could be just some of the old school stuff. A lot of stuff they're doing today, to me, it just, I look at things as a business sense. I just see so much minutes of airtime being wasted on something that's not going to probably sell, in my opinion, sell one ticket. It might sell a few tickets, but people don't come to see girls fight. Now, the 2 women in this business I respected the most was the Fabulous Moolah and Sherry Martel. And now those ladies were truly, really ladies of our business, and true professionals, and worked their butts off and worked harder than most men. And there's some other girls that fall in that category too, but those are the 2 that stick out in my head the most. And really tough girls, but real ladies on top of it.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, this has been a real fast hour, and it's really been a lot of fun having you on. It's the 3rd time I've had a chance to interview you, and I really enjoy it. And hopefully, I'm sorry.
Could you hold on one sec?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Sid's other line. He's a busy man. Maybe it's Johnny Ace calling. I guess we'll have to find out. But
okay, I'm ready.
Was it Johnny Ace finally calling?
No, I wish.
Well, I was just wrapping up here, and I was just saying how much fun it's been to be able to interview you the 3 times that I have, and I would love in a couple months to have you back on the show.
Well, I'd love to be back.
All right, thanks, man. I really appreciate it, and best of luck to you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks. All right, take care. And that was the legendary Sid Vicious. And I call him legendary because he said something to me the last time that I interviewed him. And he said to me, you know, if you look at Austin and you look at Rock and you even look at Hogan, he says that he belongs up there in that category because over his career, he has drawn more money on a consistent basis than just about anybody, maybe except Hogan, because Austin and Rock had their runs, they had their brief runs, but Sid, once he hit it big, he drew money consistently throughout his career, and it was a very controversial thing for him to say, but you really can't disagree with it when you look at the numbers. And I just remember living here in the Northeast and seeing him come out. And I think that, and I talked to his partner, his ex-partner, Dan Spivey, about this a couple of weeks ago. I think he was the first guy to get the one more time chant. Because I remember at the Bash 89, where it was either a power bomb or a choke slam that he gave to somebody, and the whole crowd in Baltimore was yelling, one more time, one more time. And the Northeast specifically had such a love affair with Sid. And I'll say this, too, because I saw Sid about a month ago, and he looks awesome. He's not a guy that's hanging on to his past and maybe out of shape compared to what he was, and probably would make would be an embarrassment of what he used to be. He looks phenomenal for his age and what he's had to go through as far as the rehab from his injury. He looks in phenomenal shape, and I really do think that he can make a legitimate impact on the wrestling scene if he were to come back. Now, we're going to take a brief timeout at 1 o'clock for the news, but when we come back, I'm expected to be joined by John House from Pro Wrestling Unplugged. He's going to talk a little bit about the Crazy 8 that will be going on tonight at the New Alhambra Arena. He will also be talking about the tailgate party that will be starting in a couple of hours down there as well. And we'll also talk about